epic tales of gods and goddesses to the scandalous escapades of mortals, sexuality has permeated ancient Greek culture. But what do we really know about sex in this era? Let's take a journey into the past and uncover some surprising truths about love, lust, and everything in between. Buckle up, it's going to be one wild ride. Sexuality in ancient Greece was considered an important part of the human experience and was, therefore, studied by philosophers and medical scholars. The idealized view of sexuality in ancient Greece was one of harmonious companionship between men and women. This perspective was founded on the principle that both genders had the ability to derive pleasure from physical intimacy and that their anatomy was naturally compatible. The reality, however, was often quite different. In addition to the idealized view of sexuality, there was also a more practical view that saw sex as a necessary part of life, but not necessarily something to be enjoyed. This practical view is based on the belief that sex was primarily for procreation, not pleasure. As such, it was not uncommon for marriages to be arranged for political or economic reasons, rather than for love or companionship. Despite the different views of sexuality in ancient Greece, there were some commonalities. For example, same-sex relationships were relatively common and generally accepted by society. These relationships were often seen as beneficial because they allowed men to express their affection without fear of rejection from women. In addition, these relationships allowed men to explore their sexual desires without risking pregnancy or disease. While there were many different views of sexuality in ancient Greece, one thing is for certain: sex was an important part of life. Whether it was for procreation or pleasure, Greeks believed that sexuality played an important role in the human experience. In ancient Greece, sexuality was not seen as a binary between men and women, but rather as a spectrum of possibilities. There were no strict gender roles when it came to sex, and people were free to engage in whatever sexual activities they pleased. This could include same-sex relations, multiple partners, or even sex with animals. Of course, not everyone in ancient Greece was equally free to express their sexuality. Women, for example, were generally expected to be monogamous and faithful to their husbands. They were also not allowed to participate in public sexual activities, such as those that took place at the famous Oracle of Delphi. Despite these restrictions, there is evidence that women in ancient Greece did enjoy relatively high levels of sexual freedom. Many women held important positions in society, and some even owned their own businesses. They also had the right to reject unwanted advances from men and could pursue relationships with other women if they so desired. So while there were certainly some limits on female sexuality in ancient Greece, it was by no means as restricted as it was in other cultures of the time. In fact, Greek women enjoyed a lot of sexual freedom that would not be seen again until much later in history. Ancient Greek mythology is full of sexual references and portrayals. The most famous example is probably the story of Zeus and Europa. In this story, Zeus takes the form of a white bull and abducts Europa. This story is often used to represent the power dynamics between men and women, as well as the dangers of sex. Other examples of sexual references in Greek mythology include the story of Hades and Persephone, in which Hades abducts Persephone and forces her to be his wife in the underworld. This story is often used to symbolize the dangers of rape and kidnapping. Additionally, there are many stories about gods and mortals having sex with one another, which usually results in either a great tragedy or great joy. These stories suggest that sex was an important part of ancient Greek culture, even though it was not always portrayed in a positive light. In conclusion, sex in ancient Greece was a topic of importance to the Greek people. Sex was seen as an important part of life, and it was something that they were not afraid to discuss openly or explore through art and literature. Ancient Greeks had a unique perspective on sexuality and its role in their society, which made them very progressive compared to other cultures at the time. Despite some differences between modern culture and ancient Greece, much can still be learned from studying their views on sex today. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great content. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload from us.